I am shoved here in the corner of my craft room because I have a problem. I really want to start my own business making and selling products. I have a bunch of ideas for things that I want to make, but as of right now, my whole workspace is kind of a mess. At first glance, some would say that there is not enough space for all of the things that I have. And I mean, this is a small space. I'll put up here what the dimensions of my workspace are. I just feel so happy to have a space dedicated to working on my hobbies and just kind of making a mess. Anyway, I'm rambling at this point. Back to the reason that I'm over here shoved in the corner. I need to start organizing. Now what I have behind me is a janky little plank of wood that I made by the window. The purpose of this janky piece of wood, when my cat is in here keeping me company, she likes to come and sit up in the window and people watch. The only problem is I kind of threw it together. I can do a lot better. So what I want to do is take this out and out of plywood, build a nice cabinet, a nice solid form where I could also house some of my new toys, such as my Shaper Origin that I actually got on Facebook Marketplace. I got a great deal on this. I also picked up a few other items. I got some more blades, and I got this little mini sustainer to hold the blades in, a Shaper Trace, and a few other items that honestly I haven't even opened yet because where am I gonna put it? So in today's video, I'm gonna build this structure out where I could have storage, and then the top will be nice and just a clear space for my cat. Come here, girl. Yes! The first thing I had to do was get rid of this old shelf, if you even want to call it that. It was held in by 2 screws that I'll wood fill and give a fresh coat of paint. Next, I just vacuumed and wiped down the area. After a year, a good amount of debris had built up. When I'm cutting out the pieces, I want to account for all these weird angles and the little trim on the bottom. Before I started, I just wanted to test fit the main items that I wanted to go over in this corner, just to make sure they had enough space. Then of course, I measured everything to get the dimensions and drew up some rough plans. I know the prices have been inflated for a while now, but I still have sticker shock every time I go to Home Depot and see what they're charging for a 2-foot by 4-foot board of plywood. And it's only $10 more for a 4-foot by 8-foot piece. I won't be using all of this. I'll probably have a lot left over, but it never hurts to have some nice sanded plywood lying around. This was pretty straightforward. I just started measuring and cutting all the pieces that I would need. I then cut dados in the top and bottom pieces of the cabinet, so it's a little easier to line everything up for assembly. So I went ahead and cut all of the pieces that I needed. So tomorrow I'm gonna get all of this glued and screwed and get the cabinet all put together. So I'm gonna go to bed now and I will see you tomorrow. All right, folks, so it's the next day and I kind of slept on it a little bit and decided to make a couple of design changes. I am no longer going to have the top of the cabinet fit perfectly with the frame of my window. You know, I'm not gonna live here forever, and if I take this somewhere else, it's gonna just look a lot better if it's more of a square shape than this weird, very specific shape. Although I decided to keep the top square, I still needed to cut out the notch on the bottom of the cabinet so it fit over the trim. I quickly cut that notch out with a jigsaw and it fit perfectly. Something that I've usually in the past been way too lazy to do that I'm trying to do with every project is dry fit. I'm sure anyone that has ever built anything from scratch has tried gluing it together without making sure everything fit first, and it ended up being a disaster. But when you dry fit, you can completely avoid all disaster. Yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine. I countersunk all of the holes so there will be no screw heads sticking out. And that is square. Enough for me. I used the wood that I cut for the shelf on the right side of the cabinet as a spacer to put the divider in. I held everything in place with clamps while I drove a few screws in. This is what it looks like so far, and I think it's really starting to come together. So it's been a couple of days since I worked on this. One of the last things that I did off camera was to create this drawer I've seen a lot of my favorite YouTubers use this technique of gluing an extra piece of wood on each side of the inside of your drawer opening and leaving enough space at the bottom for the drawer to slide in and out. So instead of making this one big drawer that pulls out, I'm doing it in sections. So this part is going to have my bit cleaner on it, and because I'm not gonna be using that as often as I'm gonna be reaching for other things in here, I made it a pretty short drawer that I can slide all the way to the back. And then I'm gonna make another drawer that actually has a box on top of it where I could hold other things that I'm gonna be using a little bit more often. I'm gonna put together the wood to make the box and install that right now. I notched out space on the bottom side of both drawers for some drawer pulls that I'm making out of some scrap leather. I had this leftover piano hinge from another project, and it's perfect for the cabinet door. I was gonna use this hook to hang the shaper trace inside the door, but I eventually had to cut the hook short to make it fit with the door closed. I unfortunately didn't have the right size screws to attach the hinge to the cabinet, so I used what I had and added backer wood so the screws didn't poke through the inside. To keep the cabinet from opening, I drilled out a hole for a strong magnet and added a toolbox knob. I filled in a few mistakes that I had made on the top and the screw holes with dowels. Now it was time to move on to my bit organization. To make things easy for me, I laid everything out to get a general idea of how I wanted my box organized. Besides the compact size, one of the main reasons I really wanted the Shaper Origin, as someone with zero CNC experience, is because they have a huge free database of designs that you could sync to your account and edit for your own needs. I was able to find a mini sustainer and edit it for the specific bits that I have. I measured my bits with the caliper to make sure the sizes matched up with the bit sizes in the pre-made file. I got the layout the way I wanted and downloaded the latest update on my Shaper. To cut the inserts on my foam, I first need to cut a holder to put my foam in. If you have a Shaper workstation, you don't have to do all this, but I don't, so I did. I stuck down a spoiler piece so I didn't cut through my workbench, as well as the piece that would hold my foam for cutting. I laid down some Shaper tape, scanned my workspace, changed out my bit, and cut out the template for my foam. I also just wanted to make a note that if you notice that the video all of a sudden looks like it was filmed on a BlackBerry, I accidentally jacked up the ISO to about 1 billion and didn't realize it until it was too late. The video quality should get better shortly. Once I had my foam in place, I then had to bring the level of the template up to the same height as the top of my foam. I always keep my iPad handy when I'm doing something I've never done before, and Shaper Origin actually has a YouTube channel where you can find detailed walkthroughs of how to do almost anything you could think of on the Shaper Origin. All right, so I think that's a pretty good stopping point for this project. Using the Shaper Origin for the first time was so much fun. This is the coolest tool I've ever owned in my entire life. I'm really looking forward to doing future projects with it. Thank you so much for watching to the end, and I'll see you on the next video. What do you think, girl? She loves it.